GoForThe2.com. We're into the week 4 predictions of the college football season. What can you say about week number 3? But upsets, upsets, and more upsets. It was an unbelievable week of college football. Week number 4 is shaping up to be a great slate of games. Let's get right into it. Let's start at the big house. Michigan taking on Utah. Should be a very interesting matchup, but I think that this game favors the Wolverines strictly for the fact that they need to win this game. If the Michigan drops this game to Utah, in my opinion, Brady Hoke could be out of a job. There's that much pressure in Michigan, in Ann Arbor, for this team to perform a very lackluster effort last week against MAC opponent Miami of Ohio. I think the team needs to step up, be motivated, hasn't looked good in their last 2 ball games against Notre Dame and Miami. I think this is a dominating performance by the Michigan offense. Devin Gardner, the offensive line take over. They wear down Utah late in this ball game to pick up a decisive 14-point victory over the Utes. If they drop this game, like I said, Brady Hoke is out of a job, so it's more the pressure's on the Wolverines to perform, and I think they step up in a big way in the big house. Let's talk about the Pac-12 matchup. It's a little bit late in the night, but it's a solid matchup between Arizona and California. 2 solid quarterbacks. Cal has sophomore quarterback Jared Goff, 7 touchdowns, 1 INT. He's very accurate, solid passer. Sonny Dykes has that team hitting on all cylinders. They're 2-0. When you look at Rich Rod, they're 2-0 as well. 2 dominating performance. Week number 1 against UNLV, another dominating performance in Texas San Antonio against a very upstart team headed by Larry Coker, former Miami head coach. So it was a dominating victory in the fact that they were able to weather the storm. They picked up a 26-23 victory in Texas San Antonio on a Thursday night. So a solid performance by Rich Rod. They have a solid quarterback as well in Solomon, completing over 60% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, 1 INT. When you look at the stats in terms of the last 7 matchups, the visitor is 1-6 in these games. So I think numbers-wise favors Arizona in this matchup. Couple that with I think Arizona is the better team and Cal is a year away. Sonny Dykes taking over a team that wasn't that good, left by Jeff Tedford. They were 1-11 in his first year. They're already 2-0. I think they're still a year away. This is a rebuilding process, and I think Arizona gets the dominant victory at home in Tucson Saturday night. Starts about 10:30 at night. A big game taking place in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's a solid matchup. Nebraska taking on Miami. When you look at this matchup, Cornhuskers dominated Fresno State last week. They put up a 50 spot. They won about 55-14, a very solid effort on the road in Fresno. They're 3-0, but when you look at their opponents' combined record, Nebraska's beaten teams with resumes that are only 2-7 overall. Their whole offense revolves, in my opinion, against the Big Ten's best back, Amir Abdullah. When you look at quarterback Tommy Armstrong, he's only completing 53% of his passes. On the other side, you look at Miami. Miami's defense playing very, very aggressive and very, very well, headed by their linebacker Denzel Perryman. They're only giving up 87 rushing yards per game, and more importantly, only giving up 177 passing yards per game. They're very solid on the defensive line. They created 11 sacks through 3 ball games. When you look at this game for Miami, I think it's a must-win. I think this is a statement game for Al Golden and that coaching staff. When you look at that quarterback, Kaya, he's a freshman. He's starting to get his feet wet, performed very well last week. And you look at Philip Dorsett's performance, over 200 yards receiving. They're going to need him to stretch the field against Nebraska. I think they could do that. That'll open up Duke Johnson. An ace in the hole for Al Golden, though, is Jay Keeps. He's a senior. He's been with Kansas. He's been with BYU. They got him involved in the offense 2 weeks ago, performed very well. He was 5 of 8 for 41 yards. If Kaya doesn't perform early on the road, I look for Golden to turn to Heaps in this matchup. So he's the ace in the hole for the Hurricanes. I think they pick up the victory, upset Nebraska 24-20 in a statement game for Miami. One game in the SEC that is very, very close numbers-wise is LSU and Mississippi State. LSU's been dominant. They haven't given up a point since week number 1 against Wisconsin. They have back-to-back shutouts Couple that with the fact that they have won 14 straight matchups against Mississippi State. They have a great offensive line, a little bit inexperienced at the quarterback position when you're looking at sophomore Anthony Jennings and freshman Brandon Harris. They're good, solid quarterbacks, but they're still inexperienced in terms of game experience. They have very good running backs, Leonard Fournette, the freshman, Kenny Hilliard, who gets the start, solid running back, and Terrence McGee also offers fresh legs for Les Miles. When you look at that defense, very solid. That's what they pride themselves on, LSU. Very solid offense and defensive lines. But when you look at this Mississippi State defense, they're solid on the defensive line as well. Preston Smith, he's a big-time performer. He'll step up. I look for him to make plays against LSU's O-line. When you look at the Miss State Bulldogs defense, only giving up 80 rushing yards per game, that plays into LSU's strength. And when you look at their defensive front, they have 11 sacks through 3 ball games. So that's very good going up against a very solid offensive line in LSU. Couple that with Dak Prescott, who's a very good quarterback, makes plays with his legs, can make plays with his arms, possibly one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC. So you have to give that advantage to Mississippi State. I think they're ready for this bowl game. In the end, though, I think LSU picks up a 17-13 victory, but Mississippi State pushes them to the limit in Death Valley Saturday night. Last ball game is Florida State Clemson. As you know, Heisman Trophy winner Jameis Winston suspended for the first half of this ball game. A lot of people jumping on Clemson. Not so with the Tigers right now. When you look at the statistics for this matchup, the home team is 10-2 overall last 12 matchups. Positive for Clemson is they haven't dropped 3 straight against Florida State since 2000 and 2002. They have inexperience, in my opinion, at the quarterback position. Cole Stout, Deshaun Watson. They have a solid defense led by Vic Beasley. I think this is a statement game for Florida State. I know their defense has given up 205 rushing yards per game, and I know they have only created 1 sack, that by coming by through Mario Edwards. But I think that they're up for this matchup. When you look at teams coming off byes, haven't performed very well throughout 3 weeks of the season, I think Florida State looks to make a statement without Jameis Winston. I look for the speed on the edge and a dominant performance by Carlos Williams. I think Florida State picks up a convincing 48-24 victory over Clemson. I'm not shying away because Winston's not playing. Stay with me all season long at GoForThe2.com.